All right, everybody, we move along to the next tier of available free agents, tier two, or what I like to call the high-end starters. And now I think things get more interesting. There are a lot more of these guys available, and there tends to be a little bit more cost effectiveness with considering signing them. There's not quite as much risk because there's not as much money involved, and you're usually able to get something closer to fair value out of the player over the length of their contract. So once again, we're going to be going through my personal top 10 of the high-end starters that we looked at over the last few weeks on this channel. And we're going to try to drill down to the guys I think the Seahawks should really aggressively target in free agency this year. And this is probably going to be the juiciest tier because you're getting big returns in terms of play while still making multi-year commitments that will allow you to push the money back and field the best possible team over the next couple years. So let's get started with number 10 on my list of high-end starters the Seahawks should try to sign this offseason. My number 10 pick is Teair Tart, most recently of the Los Angeles Chargers, a nose tackle who is just now entering his prime. Teair Tart is coming off a very impressive season where he helped anchor one of the NFL's top defenses in Los Angeles, played all 17 games, and is a legitimate force in the A-gap that should be able to take the load at nose tackle off the shoulders of players like Byron Murphy. Teair Tart is also fully capable of playing a good amount of snaps over at the 3-tech spot, so he helps a little bit with depth in that area, but really what you're getting Tart for is his abilities at nose tackle. He's coming off a year where he was very well graded by Pro Football Focus, a 76, which would make him one of the top defensive linemen in all of football, not just nose tackles. And while you can only reasonably expect to get somewhere between 20 to 25 good snaps out of Tart a game, they're going to be very good snaps. Spotrac says 1 year, 5.1 million. I would personally like to go multi-year if at all possible. I'd like to do a 2-year or even a 3-year deal. I would gladly do 5 million a year. I think that the quality of the snaps you get from him across those 20 to 25 snaps is so good that it's going to be worth that money. And he is my number 10 pick for a high-end starter free agent the Seahawks should go after. My number 9 pick here is Jamien Sherwood, linebacker from the New York Jets. And understand that in order to even consider this, of course, certain criteria have to be met. For one, you can't re-sign Ernest Jones. If Ernest Jones is re-signed, a guy like Sherwood wouldn't really have a lot to do here. But assuming that we cannot come to an extension agreement there, I think Sherwood would be one of the best options to replace him at linebacker. Sherwood is very young. He just turned 25 about a month and a half ago, so he's probably going to get much better over the next couple of years. And this comes on the heels of a breakout season for him in New York, where he played in every game, excuse me, and gave you almost 10 tackles a game while playing all-around good, effective, and efficient football for a Jets team that really did not do a lot to back him up in 2024. He was well graded by PFF in all areas, and is clearly becoming, kind of out of nowhere here, one of the up-and-coming young linebackers in this league. His upside makes him as interesting as his current high-quality level of play. Now, Spotrac says you could get him for about 2 years, 14.4 million, 7.2 million per year. I wouldn't mind going 3 years on this guy because there is going to likely be significant improvement in his play over the next couple of years, and I'd rather pay him now. But either way, I think this is something that could potentially work very well. I think you would be getting somebody at the last time you're going to be able to get him without paying a hyper premium cost. So Jamien Sherwood would be my number 9 pick for a high-end starter free agent the Seahawks could sign. My number 8 pick is Asante Samuel Jr., and of course, this one only really makes sense if Riq Woolen is traded or otherwise let go before the season starts. But if they decide to go that route and they want somebody that they know is capable of playing really good football in the NFL, Asante Samuel Jr. should probably be one of their targets. Despite his size, he's proven that he can play effective cornerback on the outside of the field along the boundary. He's only 25 and a half years old, so there's a very good chance that he's going to get better. And he's coming off a little bit of a rough 2024 that wasn't really his fault because of injury. So you're going to be able to get him at a little bit of a reduced cost. Asante Samuel Jr., last time he played a full season, played quite well. 2023, he was graded 73.9 by PFF in over 1,100 snaps on a team that was not particularly good. So we know what this guy can do when he's healthy and when he's actually able to stay on the field. So the only question really here is, how is he going to come back from a major injury last year? Now, the cost is still going to be significant, but it's not going to be massive in the way that some of the other top corners would be. Spotrac says 4 years, $45.9 million. That's $11.5 million a year. It's steep, but if the Seahawks want to go this route, I really like Asante Samuel Jr., and he is my number 8 pick here. My number 7 pick for a free agent in this tier would be Mekhi Becton. And this one is certainly a bit of a leap of faith. You need a few things to go your way here in order for this one to work out. Now, Mekhi Becton has only had really one good season in the NFL so far, last season for the Philadelphia Eagles. And we all know how good that offensive line is, so it's very possible that Becton benefited from having excellent teammates around him, making him look better than he was. He certainly did not look good as a member of the New York Jets. You also need him to be able to fit in, and you also need your coaching staff to be able to understand how to get the best stuff out of him. However, if you are willing to take that leap of faith, there is massive potential here for you to get somebody who is elite without having to pay an elite amount of money. We know how good this guy can be, and he's still young. Last year, his PFF grade was 75.2, and again, that was his first good NFL season, and there's still a chance for further growth beyond where he is right now. So if you put Becton in the right situation and you allow him to play to his strengths, what if you could get something even better than this? And what if you could get it for much less than you would be paying the other high-end right guards in free agency? Spotrac estimates 4 years, $40.9 million, just over $10 million a year. That's about half of what you're looking to give somebody like a Trey Smith, and significantly less than what you would give somebody like a Will Fries. So if you're willing to take the leap of faith that Becton is going to be able to continue his high level of play outside of having elite teammates around him, he is worthy of targeting and my number 7 pick for this video. My number 6 selection for this video is Brandon Stephens of the Baltimore Ravens. A cornerback, there's some overlap here with Mike Macdonald, as Macdonald was the defensive coordinator there for 2 of Stephens' 4 years in the NFL so far. And if the Seahawks decide to move on from Riq Woolen, and if they decide they want to pursue a veteran free agent to fill the gap in the roster with him, I think Stephens could be somebody that Macdonald bangs the table for a little bit because of his familiarity with him. Stephens just turned 27 and should be playing his best football for the next few years. He's played in 33 of 34 possible games over the last 2 years. He's made a good amount of plays on the football. Now, he is coming off a little bit of a down year, it would seem. 2024 was not quite so kind to him, but the last time he was under Mike Macdonald as defensive coordinator, he played quite well. PFF gave him a 69.2 on almost 1,100 snaps. So it seems like he benefited from getting coached by Mike Macdonald due to having his best years under him. And because of him having a not stellar year in 2024, there might be a little bit of a discount here. Spotrac estimates he's going to get 3 years, $24.8 million, $8.3 million a year, which would be a good amount cheaper than the top free agent cornerbacks this year, and would actually be a pretty reasonable cost. That first-year cap hit might be less than $5 million. So Brandon Stephens, if only for the familiarity he has with Macdonald, is my number 6 pick for high-end starter free agent for the Seahawks. My number 5 pick here is a tight end, Tyler Conklin of the New York Jets. And we need to save this guy from New York. He's been on the Jets for 3 years, clearly a pretty good player with a lot to offer in the NFL, but he's been wasting away on a team with an offense that has been completely inept for 3 years running. They haven't really given him a good quarterback to play with. The best he had was very washed up Aaron Rodgers from last year, and he still managed a decent amount of production. Now, obviously, this player is about to turn 30. He's probably leaving his prime. It's not ideal, but as far as this tight end free agency class goes, this is probably the best we can do. And we know we need tight ends if we're going to run Kubiak's offense. PFF wasn't enamored with his 2024 by any stretch of the imagination, but he has had good graded years before. And again, let's remember, he's in that Jets offense where it's really hard to get much of anything done. Botrack thinks he's going to get 3 years, 27 million, 9 million a year, which is obviously steep, but it's probably going to be a relatively easy out after 2 years. And the bottom line is Conklin offers something that no other tight end offers in this free agency class, which is a combination of a relatively high ceiling and versatility. So if you want a tight end who is at least half decent blocking and can give you a high number of reps, and maybe even a high-profile weapon in the passing attack, Tyler Conklin's your guy, so he's my number 5 here. My number 4 selection here would be Aaron Banks, the left guard from the San Francisco 49ers. And there are certainly some reservations here that I went over in my video discussing him. He's an offensive lineman on Kyle Shanahan's offense, which means he probably benefits tremendously from having Shanahan coaching him, and he's also spent much of his career playing next to Trent Williams at left tackle, which probably makes him look better than he is. What I would say, though, is that in 2024, I don't know how much that really applied because Trent Williams missed a lot of time, and when he did play, he wasn't as good as we're used to. He did miss 4 games last year, which is a little bit concerning that he couldn't even finish out the whole season in what was a contract year for him. But he has played a lot of football over the last 3 years as the starter on a Niners offensive line that has produced elite offense and 2 NFC title game appearances. So despite my reservations, this has to be strongly considered. He's young. He's going to be giving you the best football of his career because he's just now hitting his prime, having turned 27 back in September. PFF did grade him pretty well, if not over the top well, in 2024, and PFF's whole purpose is trying to weigh players independently. And he is a true left guard, which I place a lot of value on, getting to take care of that position with an at least competent, decent player for the next few years. Botrack estimates 3 years, 29.1 million, 9.7 million a year. That's actually not that bad compared to what other top-end left guards have gotten over the last couple of years. Now, I don't think Aaron Banks would be top-end, but I think you'd be getting your money's worth more or less, and I think you'd at least take care of that left guard position for a few years. So Aaron Banks is my number 4 pick for this video. My number 3 pick here is Ryan Kelly, center of the Indianapolis Colts. And this one definitely comes with some concerns and some areas where you have to cross your fingers and hope for the best. Ryan Kelly has been a great player throughout much of his career. He's a former first-round pick, but he's about to turn 32 this offseason, and it sure seems like his best years are already behind him. He's missed a significant amount of time, 10 games over the last 2 seasons combined, and his PFF grade dipped significantly, even though he was still considered to be a well above average center in 2024. So you're definitely getting Ryan Kelly and just hoping he can hold it together for 1 or 2 more years at an above average to good level. There's not necessarily going to be a ton of upside here because the upside seems to have been left in the past with his prime seasons back in the late 10s and early 20s. But you are getting somebody who is a reliable veteran who has been doing this for a very long time. And ultimately, you know you need a high-quality center for this offense to work. So you're going to have to live with the fear and just take the plunge here. And I do think the reward is worth the risk because of how good Ryan Kelly has been for much of his career. Now, Spotrac says you give him a 1-year deal worth 10.1 million. I don't love the 1-year deal, but I recognize you might have to do it because this is a guy who at this point, for safety purposes, probably needs to be paid year to year. You could go 2 years and maybe do a 1-and-1 type deal. Either way, I think you have to at least strongly consider taking the plunge on Ryan Kelly because a high quality center is going to really help this Kubiak offense. So, despite my concerns, he is my number 3 pick for a high end starter free agent. My number 2 pick for a high end starter free agent is Drew Dalman, center from the Atlanta Falcons. And this is something that I think this whole fan base would get excited about. He's a center that has proven to be quite good so far in his career. He hasn't even turned 27 yet. He'll turn 27 in October. And there's an opportunity to get him at a little bit of a reduced cost because he only played 9 games in 2024. So Drew Dalman is, in my opinion, very clearly the best center available in this free agency class. He's coming off a year where, yes, he did miss a significant amount of time, but in the snaps that he did play, he was graded extremely well by PFF, and pretty much every football analyst out there considers this guy to be starting to push into the elite center category. So Drew Dalman is going to be a very hot commodity this offseason, but it's going to be a little bit brought down by the simple fact that he missed about 8 games in 2024. Now, Spotrac says 3 years, 20.3 million or 6.8 million per year. I would certainly love to do that. It would not surprise me if it ends up being a little bit more because center is going to be a tough nut to crack this offseason. The draft is weak, and Dalman is clearly the best of a not great free agency class. But I would be willing to follow that payment structure up a little bit if I needed to. If I need to give this guy $8 million a year, I would do it. He's young enough and proven to be good enough when he's on the field. So Drew Dalman would be very exciting to bring in, would help take care of the center position for at least the next few years, and is my number 2 pick here. And my number 1 pick for a high-end starter free agent for the Seahawks to target this offseason is Teven Jenkins, a left guard, most recently with the Chicago Bears, who turns 27 any day now. Teven Jenkins has proven himself to be more than capable of playing well at the left guard position in the NFL. He hasn't played a full season in the NFL yet, but did play a career-high 14 games in 2024. And ultimately, with how valuable and how rare the left guard position has become over the last few years, you need to go ahead and take a risk if that's what it takes for you to get a quality starter at the position for not only the short term, but maybe even the medium term or the long term. Teven Jenkins was graded well by PFF last year for the snaps that he did play, 75.4, and he did play most of the season, so we did get a pretty good idea of what we're dealing with here. And let's remember that Bears offense that he was on, particularly the offensive line, was not good. So the fact that he was able to maintain this where he was is actually extremely impressive. Spotrac thinks he's going to get 3 years, 31 million. I think this is probably a little bit of an undershoot. I think he's going to get more like 12 or 13 million a year, but I'm willing to pay that as well. If we could get him here, that'd be a dream come true. I would be willing to go up to maybe as high as 15 million because at a certain point, you got to be willing to roll the dice. And Teven Jenkins would be a plug and play left guard who would immediately be better than anyone you've had there for a very long time. So he is my number 1 pick for a high-end starter free agent for the Seahawks to target. See you guys later. Go Hawks. Let me know what you think.